Hello, hello, hello. Welcome out there. Welcome to Mondays Beyond the Mic. This is the place where we talk about relationships. We go deeper and beyond the surface level topics. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my words tonight, but I'm going to get it together. This is a space that provides us with an opportunity to dive into more personal and profound relationships and aspects of our lives. Before we get started, we want to say thank you to our faithful followers. Thank you if you were here last week, and thank you for returning. And if you are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. And next to me is my co host, Dr. Elaine Sanders.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome tonight. And remember, we need you to like, share, subscribe, and you may see something on there which is called the super chat with the dollar sign. So we want some super chats tonight. Can we get some super chats tonight?
And before we get into the show, you know we have to do our disclaimers. Know that everyone's opinion here will be respected. We will watch our words so we don't have to go into YouTube time out. So those are the house rules. And let's congratulate our dads. We dedicated the month of June to dads just because we wanted to, just because we celebrate our men. So that's what we did. So the last day of June, we know that this does not put a dent in what you all deserve. However, we hope that this gesture of appreciation was received with the love and sincerity it was intended to convey, and that is to our men. So we hope we did you just a little bit of justice by celebrating you for the month of June. Dr. Sanders, my co host,
And we just also
introduce our guest.
I will, but right before we do that, I just want to also say, as we know, June is also a Men's Health Month. So we want to know we care about you physically, mentally. As dads, we know you carry a lot of weight, or even as men, if you're not a dad, you carry a lot of the weight of the world on your shoulders, and we want to celebrate you and salute you to our men. So without any further ado, I am elated to introduce our guest for tonight. I've known her for quite some time, so I'm excited that I can call her friend. So I'm going to give you an intro. I'm going to read her bio, but she's a wonderful woman. So Dr. Cheryl Hardy is a seasoned counselor and owner of her own private practice in New Jersey. She provides counseling services and teaches counseling and psychology. She conducts grief groups and facilitates mental health presentations. Dr. Hardy is a board certified in child and adolescent therapy, death and grief therapy, crisis, and abuse therapy. She graduated from Northwind Theological Seminary with a doctorate in contextual ministry and faith based education. Dr. Cheryl is also a graduate of Cornerstone University with a doctor of philosophy and clinical counseling, along with a master's in counseling. She has a bachelor's in counseling from Calvary Theological Seminary. Dr. Hardy is a certified grief recovery specialist. Dr. Hardy is an adjunct professor in the counseling and psychology department at Fuller College. She can supervise interns. She was also the co-host of a local radio program sharing mental health and relationships. She is also, or she was also invited as a guest panelist in 2022 for the International Leadership Summit hosted by Bishop T.D. Jakes, and she is also a certified in trauma. Dr. Cheryl's motto is time is non-refundable. Use it wisely. So we like to say welcome to
Welcome.
Dr. Cheryl Hardy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me in this space. And thank you for being on this wonderful show. I just can't wait to hear our conversation as we move further. I appreciate you both and the audience.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And speaking of the audience, we have faithfuls. So when I say we're going to commercial break, that means we're going to do our guests.
So Vaughn says, blessings all. Blessings, Vaughn. Thank you for returning. The psalmist says, let's go, Harlem girls. Psalmist says, welcome, Dr. Hardy.
Thank you very much.
So these are our faithfuls. So tonight, for the last week of our dad celebrations, we will be talking about boundary enforcement versus boundary settings. This can get a little sticky, I think. So let's give the definition of both. Boundary setting definition. Boundary setting involves defining and communicating your personal limits, values, and needs to others. It is a proactive process where you establish what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior from others in relationships to you. Co host, do you want to read boundary enforcement?
Sure. Boundary enforcement, the definition. Boundary enforcement involves taking action to uphold your boundaries when they are challenged or violated. It is a reactive process where you respond to boundary breaches to maintain your limits.
So that's what we will be talking about tonight. But before we move on, we have some more faithfuls coming in.
Reginald Brown says, aloha to the family. Hope everyone is doing well.
Thank you, and likewise, Reginald.
The Gaffey place says, hello, all. Hello.
Hello.
Ane is saying hello. The psalmist says, what a month at Bravo with Sheila Network. Thank you for your dedication to men's mental health. Let's go. And on that note,
Let's go.
remember, like, share, subscribe, and you see those that dollar sign. I need you to hit that super chat. All right. Kathy
Super
said, good
chat.
evening. Welcome,
Thank you.
Dr. Hardy. All right.
Great. So let's get in. So, for this month, we have been talking from the book, The Boy Crisis, and this is where we got the topic from. So, I will be reading something from The Boy Crisis from the chapter Boundary Enforcement versus Boundary Settings. And it says, dads and moms both love their children deeply, but differently. They have different ways of setting boundaries and enforcing boundaries, exploring in nature, roughhousing, creating teachable moments, challenging their kids' limits, using hangout time, and different attitudes towards teasing. Now, boundary enforcement versus boundary setting. Moms often ask, why is it that when I speak, nothing happens, but when their dad speaks, the kid drops everything and obeys? Is it that it's because his voice is deeper? It makes moms feel disrespected and taken for granted. But it's not that dad's voice is deeper. Dads who don't enforce boundaries are also ignored. Studies of single dads and single moms find that moms report themselves as considerably more stressed than dads, even though single moms are much more likely to receive financial assistance. Now, here's the funny part. Perhaps the most important reason is because moms are more likely to set boundaries, where dads are more likely to enforce boundaries. Dr. Hardy, what do you think about that?
I agree with that. Mom, dad will enforce boundaries because they would like to see structure. Um, they and respect because men are big on respect. And I just want to back up and say I really appreciate you highlighting men because there's not too many programs that highlight men, and we really need to touch base with our men mental health and the men health, and to acknowledge the great things that they are doing. And it is some great men around. So getting back to that, yes, they are more, and women, we're more emotional. And so we like to see things done a certain way where a man like to get the job done. And so we also have to remember that we think different too. A man think from one side of his brain at a time, one side, the right side, then the left side, or either side, where a woman thinks from both sides of her brains at the same time. And so he's thinking logically and sequential and what's in order. And so when it comes to boundaries for the children, yeah, he wants it like the army in most cases. And so that's my take on it.
That was
No,
good already. Wow. We think maybe that's why sometimes we over here, because this side says logic, this side says emotions. Oh, Lord help us. This is good already. Okay. All righty. Moving right along. Listen, look at this.
the psalmist says that part at Dr. Hardy. Thank you for the cosign.
Yeah, yeah, and we have to respect each other's boundaries, and sometimes it's difficult for people to when you're raised a certain way. I know we're going to talk about that later on about culture and society, but when we're raised a certain way, we bring in those habits and those boundaries. And boundaries is not always bad. You notice how you tell people we need to set boundaries, and all of a sudden people become defensive. But boundaries could be very good because it could structure, keeping things
Mhm.
in line. Because if you think about it, if you didn't have boundaries on a highway, we would be all over the place. So you need the guardrails. So the boundaries are the guardrails to our lives. Just like in the Bible, it said, guard your heart. That's a boundary. Let me just protect and guard my.
Mhm.
And so, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yes. The guardrails and the speed limit. Now we're not gonna get into the speed limit. Elaine, let's just go to the questions. We're not gonna talk about speed
But
limits.
I like that, the guardrail, guard your heart. So many times we're vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
because we let anyone in instead of putting up boundaries when it comes to issues of the heart. I know that's not what I'm gonna get to the question though. Okay. So how can dads identify areas in their children's lives where they need to set boundaries?
I think identifying with their behavior, with the structure, and with their surroundings. What type of surroundings is the children being raised in? And some and everything is not. We have intact family, we have single family homes, we have all different types of families. So we have to honor and respect each person's house. And so it's the structure that should take place, and that behavior. How is that child acting when they with their friends, when they with mom, when they with the grandparents, and what type of boundaries, and that boundary is what type of structure you need to set for them, and not be so hard and harsh. You want to give them room to move.
And that's really good, not being so hard to where they don't think the boundary is a punishment.
Yes. Yes.
That's because I think as kids they can kind of get the two confused when it's really discipline and setting a boundary for the betterment of you, opposed to you're not letting me doing this, and the kid may feel as though they're being punished.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, do you think that also has something to do with tone, right? Because the delivery of what you're setting. So, although you're putting the guardrails in place, if you're doing it when you're angry, then it comes across to the child in that way. But I'm going to let Dr. Hardy.
Yeah, yeah, we get into that. So
Okay.
go, Dr. Hart. You have anything else you want to say
No, I, I,
to
I
that question?
really want to just add on to the tone. The tone is always something we need to watch at any age and stage of a child, whether they are toddler or adult. And setting boundaries for adult children is another different type of stages also. And so, yeah, our tone is very important because your harsh tone can set it off and
Hmm.
make a person just lose their momentum or lose respect for you.
Very true. I can totally see that. So our next question says,
Mhm.
how can dads balance setting boundaries with giving their child or children the freedom to explore and grow?
That's a very good question. Setting boundaries need to be clear. It needs to be a clear, both parties understand. There need to be great listening skills. You hear what they saying, or you listening. Also, I would say you need to consider the aftermath. Like after you set the boundaries,
Mm,
how that person going to maintain and handle the boundaries? Because sometimes boundaries you might need to change it. It's not always set in stone. And so, and then that will give them the freedom to move, because when you give a person a freedom to move, they can handle those boundaries. Remember, boundaries is everywhere. Everywhere on this in this world is boundaries in the Bible, is boundaries at work, it's boundaries with family, it's boundaries at home, it's boundaries with the law. So everything needs some type of
Mm.
structure. But to have the freedom with it, that's the great results from the for the child to feel like, okay, you said this, and because they want that freedom, they need some type of results too, because you don't want to just press that person down, because what happens is that'll just follow through into adulthood, and then when you meet your partner and he says something like, oh, we need to do this, oh my god, you sound like my father now, and I don't need no boundaries, I'm grown and I could do what I want to do. So we want to just have it in stages so they can be free and grow internally, you know, if that makes sense.
That's very good, because I had a thought when you said that when we get grown, it's like, oh, now you acting like my father, when your dad or your father set a boundary. But as an adult, we may look at it as a trigger.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It's a saying that children who are raised in chaos is triggered by peace.
Wow.
Wow.
And
That's
Wow.
so I don't know that it's anonymous, but if you're raised in chaos, when peace comes, that's why sometimes when people get into a relationship, because their house was all in shambles and the rage and all that, and then you meet a peaceful partner, it's a trigger. Like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? What you getting ready to do? Well,
Or you can't be real.
yes, this is not real. This is fairy tale. You can't be that calm. You can't be that happy
Wow.
or joyful or peaceful, because you're waiting for the ball to drop, because something always happened when you was growing up. So those are boundaries we want when you talk about that freedom, we want them to have that peace, at the end of that
Hmm.
that structure that you have set.
Wow.
that was
Wow.
yeah, we said
That's
wow at
good.
the same time. Right.
That's good.
Right? Boundaries can be beautiful, but it also can be overwhelming. So we have to match it with the person and the personality.
Hmm.
So there's no cookie cutter to
There's
it.
no cookie cutter. You could have exact twins, and one can be just all over the place, and the other one can just be chilling. And so, yeah,
So,
there's no
so
cookie
in
cutter.
terms of that, is knowing your kids
Knowing your
and
kids,
knowing set different boundaries for different kids.
and also knowing yourself, because you need to be equipped and be able to lead without snapping, without losing your emotional intelligence. Self-control is emotional intelligence. So you need to learn yourself first sometimes before you set the boundaries. How am I doing this as a parent? you know
Hmm.
what is this gonna if am I bringing my generational pain and generational trauma into this child's life? Is it transmitted to them? So you want to put a check on yourself, because you want a smooth transition for us, for the boundaries.
Wow. That's really, really good. So, commercial break, because our faithfuls are talking to us.
M. Mill says, "Hey, beautiful sister at Ane." Landon said, "Yep, yep." M. Mill says, "This is so true. They will also keep going back to the chaotic atmosphere because that's their normal." Mike McDonald said, "You're beginning all of your questions. How can dads? With all due respect, Dr. Hardy is a woman."
Listen, listen, Mike, I still have my gavel. We are not going to start. It is too early for you. We will talk to you later. Thank you very much, Mike McDonald. Again, we are still in June. Remember, we dedicated the entire month to dads, Mike. Remember that. Thank you.
So he
Co-host, can
so
you
he is
go ahead?
saying, I'm saying we talking about the dads, but I'm still sharing my perspective from a woman's point of view.
Dr. Hardy,
Okay.
that's
Yes, ma'am.
Mike. Mike probably will be up later and you will get to meet Mike.
Okay.
Mike has a different perspective that we always respect, but we're going to move on because you will meet Mike later.
Oh, awesome.
Co-host, can you please continue and read the next question?
So the next question is, how can cultural, family, or societal expectations influence the boundaries dads set?
Societal culture, because of your family culture, it can influence the boundaries that you set. That's why you have to have clear, concise conversation. So that's why communication is so important, because you're not you mentioned the culture, you mentioned the family, and also societal. If we just drop to society, is the social media takes a big part of our children's lives. And social media also puts um, the mental health has increased since social media came on, with depression and anxiety because of a lot of comparing. And so, as a parent, having social media and setting boundaries is one of the most tough. It's very hard to maintain at this point with most parents now, because screen time is taking more time than family time. We don't sit at the dinner table anymore. That's a boundary. Like, we want to just have conversation. A lot of our children don't know what's going on with the parents and grandparents. Setting those culture, because each house is, you can live next door, you can have um, the same type of family, Caucasian, black, or black, and different cultures. You could have the different cultures where one family get up early and another family get up late, right? So the culture plays a big part, because if you're getting up late and you need to be to work on time, remember your workplace have set a boundary. You're supposed to be there at 8.
Hmm.
You're going to be there at 8. If not, it's going to affect your pocket. You don't let anything mess with your money. And
Right.
so, and that's a boundary. And so these are things we want to teach our children: to be on time for school, to be on time for work. Our culture in this house is this way. How can you set the family culture, having history, talking about what's going on? And just like I said earlier, social media is taking it's just it's taking its toll on a lot of our young folks, especially when it comes to suicidal thoughts and ideation, and comparison is the biggest thing. And then we have to realize that sometimes a person took about 17 pictures to get that one shot to put on social media. So, you want to make sure those boundaries are set for your children, that you're okay, you're wonderful, you're fine, and to we want to enhance that. I hope I answered your question.
All right, let's see.
The psalmist says, "Let's go at Mike McDonald, laugh out loud." M. Mill says, "Fathers are important in the lives of their families." Absolutely.
Yes,
The Gaffey place said, "Great point, Doc."
thank you.
Reginald
And they
said,
laughed at Mike
"Yeah, they're laughing at Mike."
and Mike.
Landon said, "No such thing as dumb questions, goes for all ages." So true.
Hmm.
So true, so true. So thank you so far for your perspective and your professional insight on these questions. The next question, we're going to move on to boundary enforcement. How can dads enforce their boundaries without feeling guilty or coming across aggressive?
Fathers are men are leaders, um, by the standard and boundaries that God has placed on this earth. And a lot of times when see, I'm thinking of a couple of different things. So I'm thinking about multi homes. Like, some homes is single. Some, if you're having a partner that lives in different homes, how can you establish those boundaries? That can be some type of concern. But the main thing is to have conversation, so you won't feel overwhelmed. Or sometimes when a father share that they want to have a structure, they'll feel guilty because maybe they're given the instructions that they never did. That's what I'm thinking about. And so, guilt is something that sneaks up on adults. And sometimes we just have to minimize that and have a just a conversation with ourselves and say it's okay because you want better for your children. Yeah, so that's my take on it. Not feeling guilty and enforce the rule and just move forward. It's okay to explore and understand yourself and your child without feeling guilty.
Hmm. That's good.
All right. So before I ask the next question, I'm going to go
Mhm.
back to say like, share, subscribe. And as I stated before, we want some super chats. So where are you? And for the people who are in the balcony and the bleachers, please, please hit that button. We appreciate you. So
Thank
the
you.
next question would be, what are some practical steps for dads to enforce their boundaries when they are challenged?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Challenges is going to be there when it comes to boundaries, and I think we should make that subject of boundaries as light as possible. Be clear on what you want, your beginning, your middle, and your end. Have great communication, and communication is you're both listening and hearing, and actually hearing is doing the behavior, because there's a lot of people that listen to what you're saying but they don't hear what you're saying, so they're not behaving that way. They just ignore it. So we want the behavior to be an actual, and to maybe sometimes you might have to get a third party to come in, like a mentor
Mm.
or a coach or a therapist, to enforce that part of boundaries, because sometimes people listen to other people more than the people that's closest to them, and that's just a given with human nature. And sometimes you just need that third party.
I think that's very good. I remember sharing with my daughter when she was young. I said, I know you're not going to tell me everything because I'm your mom, but please find somebody. Find a positive outlet that you can talk to. Someone that will level you back or talk sense to you. But just always have that outlet and don't hold everything in.
That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Because that person will be neutral, and when the person is neutral and not emotionally attached, it goes over differently. But when you're
Mhm.
emotionally attached with your love, your emotions, your love, your money, your overall thinking about them for the future, it can become enmeshed, with
Mhm.
that child.
Mhm.
So you want to be as you living life as comfortable as possible, knowing that uncomfortability will come, but you want to set it up for greatness. And
Mhm.
when the uncomfortability comes, you'll be all right with it because you already expect it, especially if you had a conversation about it. Talking is one of the best things you can do. Just put everything on the table. And like you said, coach, if not, have someone else to come in and have that third party that you could share with.
Awesome. That's great insight. Let's take a little commercial break here.
The psalmist says social media is very powerful, and I'm still wondering if it had anything to do with my son's passing.
Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Sorry to hear that you speak of it often. And this is why we have people like Dr. Hardy that can help you navigate those unknown aspects. I think sometimes we all live with the why
Uh-huh.
and we will never know, but professionals such as Dr. Hardy can help us navigate through those traumas or difficult situations that we have gone through.
And especially someone like Dr. Hardy who specializes in grief counseling. So it's not
Hmm.
just, there's everyone has, she's a specialist. And that's what I like about it. There's the general practitioner, she's a specialist as the doctor. The
Yeah.
Gap Place says, love that question. Need to hear about how to manage the guilt for being a bit stern when no longer in the house.
Wow, that's good.
That is good.
That's good.
So, as being stern when you're no longer in the house. So we're talking about adult child. adult person that the person has set boundaries and they're still telling them what to do. That's what it sounds
I,
like.
I think the question, and I could be wrong, but I think the question is if you had a two-parent home and now the father's no longer in the house, how, you were the stern one, and now how do you set those boundaries and you're no longer in the house? But the Gaffy place can clear it up if that is not what they
What
were trying to
he
say.
meant.
And so,
So
before she clear it, if she probably is going to come back and clear it up, but I think that's now it's time to take that shift because you don't have to be stern anymore. It's time to lift. If the dynamics have changed, it's time to lighten up. Because being hard is not always the answer. It helps sometimes with some certain people and certain personalities need that stern, need to be stern. But for the most part, sometimes we need to lighten up because um, that old way it works for some, but it's not really working as well as we think it is now. If you know what I mean, we don't do the whooping now. So, and the switching, go out there and get your switch and all that stuff. But that is not appropriate anymore because we'll be on clank clank with orange suit on, and so we don't we don't want that. So that stern that I just question that. I think whoever set that up, you in that stern situation, it's time to lighten up and just change the dynamics.
all righty. And listen, before we
We
go
got
any
to,
further, before we anything, we got a super chat
woo
going on.
woo,
Yay. Dr.
excited.
Hardy is the real
The real
deal.
deal.
Great combo. Okay, we got another one going down in the super chat.
We
The
thank you.
Psalmist Network. We thank you. So, what happens with the super chat is when someone purchases a super chat and the super chat comes up, we read their comments first and everybody else goes behind them because guess what? They're paying for their comments to be up. So, that's what the super chat is about. So, now we're going to go to the next commercial break, would be this.
Kathy said, would you say in the world we live in today, boundaries are more ignored than respected?
Yes, absolutely. When if boundaries was acknowledged more, we would live better because we'll have our own personal peace and our personal structure. And when you are structured, the next person is become structured and in order too. So yeah, respect has diminished quite a bit, um, especially lately in the last 5 years. And it comes from the top to the bottom. You can see it everywhere on social media, on television. Disrespect, calling people name, calling people out of their name. We're not designed to be called bees and all these other things. We're not. We're If you're gonna call me a bee, call me beautiful, right?
All right.
Right.
you know,
Right.
you know, because we're beautiful, we're fearfully made, we're wonderful, we're amazing, we're intelligent, and there will be no other person like you. So as your fingerprints is different, so as you are different. So that's how amazing you are. So when we set boundaries, we need to set it up as that great person that you are setting up for life. And respect is very important. Respect will take you far.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So, we have some jokes going on in here.
The psalmist says timeout doesn't work.
Dr. Hardy.
Time.
The Gaffy place said correct, Dr. Sanders. So I was explaining it was the
Okay.
person's no longer in the house and the children are there. And I don't, and Reginald says
Yeah. So it should be.
not a thing, nothing was wrong with the whoopings.
Okay, all right. So you can keep getting your whoopings. I just want to pause for that.
Right, that's good. That's a good one. And it's funny that Kathy asked that because the next question says, how can fathers handle situations where their boundaries are repeatedly disrespected? What's the solution to that?
Ooh, so when the boundaries are repeatedly disrespected, I would say they need to establish new and healthy boundaries. And the disrespect is coming because the person just doesn't want to adhere to what was said. And so we have to do that trust because you need trust, safety, and respect, right? The
Trust,
trust
safety,
is
and
when you
respect.
believe in the rule, set rule, trust. safety, and respect. And so the trust is when you believe in the set rule. The safety is when you feel healthy and comfortable with it, right? And then the respect is necessary to follow through.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
really good. What was the order? Trust. No, what was the order?
Trust,
Trust,
safety,
safety, and
and
respect.
respect. It's
I
necessary.
like. It's necessary.
It's
That's good. That's
necessary.
good.
If it's repeatedly disrespect, it needs to be a conversation and that trust, because trust is really big. Once you trust someone, you will follow through with any
Hmm.
directives that's given because you trust that person and you trust yourself to go back to that person and address it if it's not what you think it should be.
That's true. That's true. And the jokes are going on tonight.
The
We have
jokes
a couple
are
old schoolers in here.
They said the switch had a great anointing. My God.
the
Go
switch.
and tell them to go get the switch. Go get it.
All right, so go get that switch now and just hit your chair.
Yeah,
Right.
right. That
And
part.
it goes to something you said earlier. How's that working for you? When somebody, I've always been this way. I've always been this way. How's that
Mm,
been working for you?
that is so true. That is true. And I want to get back to what the psalmist, I believe, said about social media and
Hmm.
the transition of his son. The only thing with that, one of the things that concerns me is, have he ever expressed himself? Have he ever shared anything? Because a lot of times children suffer in
Mm,
silence, and social media is their go to, and they take a lot of information. A lot of times I'm reading social media, certain things people say about therapy and mental health. And I said, oh God, please, I hope people are not really believing this because that doesn't
mm.
work for everyone. And sometimes what they're saying is not correct. They're going off of feelings. And so, yeah. So my concern is, did he ever share his heart? Did he ever share anything, or did he just suffer in silence?
Well, I believe that's a good question because the psalmist is one that faithfully comes up. So I believe when we drop the link, he will come up and share that if he
Okay,
feels,
if he feels
he's up
comfortable,
to it, because that's very,
sensitive.
that's
Mhm.
yeah, that's very, very sensitive. So great, great, great. And we're going to keep moving. Right now, we're going to go into personal experiences and challenges. And my co host will read the next question.
Yes, it says, how can people deal with the emotional backlash from others when they enforce their boundaries?
So dealing with the emotional backlash. Um, First of all, um, you will get backlash in just about anything that deals with boundaries. How can you process that? Is you just have to move forward with what you have made clear and communicated, and ignore the backlash, which is challenging and difficult for some. But a lot of times when it comes to backlash, you have to let it go when you know that you're right. It's almost like the switch, right? The switch is annoying. I'm gonna whoop your tail, right? And so, and people say, I like me say, I don't believe in switch, but you already have whooped the tail. You already made your decision. So that's how it is with boundaries. You just have to make your decision and stick with it. When you hear the backlash, you're gonna have to work on that part of your mind to release it and let it go.
Hmm, that's good. That's good. So the next question says, how can setting and enforcing boundaries contribute to long term mental and emotional health?
Ooh. Long term mental and what? Let me see what the question is again. How can setting boundaries, you said,
And
contribute
how can
to
setting and enforcing boundaries contribute to long term mental and emotional health?
when a person feel like that boundary that you have set is disrespectful or overwhelming? It could stick with them for a long time, even life. That's why communication is so important, and having a conversation that I am doing this for you to be successful in life. I'm doing this, but they need to have a reason. Um, Doing certain things with one thing we have to realize, your cerebral cortex doesn't fully close until you're 25, right? And so your frontal lobe is all over the place, it's wide open. So that's why we need structure, respect, boundaries, so we can help you move through life. So when you become 21, 25, and 30, you can have your emotional intelligence, your human intelligence, your business intelligence, your educational intelligence. It'll all flow. And that comes with boundaries. And so that's a good thing, right? And so that's my take on it.
Okay.
So, would it be safe to say, with those setting boundaries at a younger age, it's healthy? It's a
It is
healthy way. It
healthy.
helps you process as we get older, and it helps us navigate through things by having those
Absolutely.
guardrails.
And then, like we said earlier, if the tone is not good, it stays with you. How many times I have had clients that's 88, 90, and their parents had said something to them when they were 6, 7, and they're still talking about it.
Wow.
And so what happens is your parent voice stays in your head for life, just like grief stays with you for life. What they say stays. So what how we present ourselves, how we talk to our children is everlasting. So we want to be mindful of that because it can affect your mental and emotional health. And you can just transfer that transference, you could transfer that behavior right on your next relationship, whether
Mm,
it's work or your partner.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
It just to kind of just interject. I mean, I know we're talking about dads, but it made me think of my son. You know, I have a 17-year-old son, and how do I connect with him with having those things? But he's a different child than my oldest daughter. So the way or the things that I could have said to her, not they don't work with him. So just figuring out that personality to be able to say what is the most effective way to communicate with him, and understanding that I want the best, and to the things, the trust, the safety, and the respect, that he can flourish to be, that man that I know he will be. But also giving him room to know he's not going to be perfect. And I
Yes,
think that sometimes, we have this great expectation for our children because we're like, they came from us. They're supposed to know better. And we don't give room for them to mess up, so to speak, or no, just be a child, not even just mess up, just do the things we did, but we have this higher expectation now because we feel like we got it together.
absolutely. And that's when you have to give that space to let a person grow, right? And don't give up on them and let them keep moving in there. A lot of times we want certain things for our children, but they might not want it. You want your child to be.
Mhm.
I had one client, want his child to be a lawyer. He's a lawyer, but the child was an artist. And so when
Mhm.
the child painted his first picture and they paid him $10,000, the father got quiet. But artists
Go be an artist.
Paint
I'm
on,
gonna
son,
support you
paint
now.
on.
on the
Yeah.
Euro and keep painting, baby. And so sometimes our children know what's inside of them. They do. They really know, but it's hard for them to give language to it.
Mm.
I mean, again, I'm sorry, just interjecting. I'm thinking about what you said. When I was a kid, my mom wanted me to be a school teacher. She wanted me to be a K through 12 teacher because that was one of the things she wanted. And at that time, being the K through 12 teacher was basically one of the great professions of what we did. And I remember saying, Ma, I don't want to do that. And she was like, but you would be a great teacher. And I was like, but I don't like little kids like that to be in a classroom with children all day. And what I found was, if I had given in to what she wanted, I probably would not have been happy. But then I realized on the other side, she had the right profession, but the wrong audience. When I became a college
Mm,
professor, I was like,
that's
she
it.
saw a teaching ability, but in her mind, she did not see women, and especially Black women, being college professors. She saw them being K through 12 teachers. So I think what you just said is like the kid knows what's inside of them, like that's not what I want to do. And sometimes kids will do what their parents want them to do, and they're totally unhappy because it's not what they wanted.
That is so absolutely right. Yes.
I also, let me ask you this, Dr. Hardy. When
Yes,
kids
ma'am.
do what their parents want them to do, how does that affect them? Because I've seen some act out because this is not what I'm doing it just for you. So pretty much suppressing who they want to be to make the parents happy. How does that turn out?
And that brings on a lot of depression, anxiety, because they are uncomfortable because you are built in to kind of know what you want. You know, like God gave everybody that inner strength and sense, and you know what you like. I knew I wanted to be a counselor when I was 9 years old, but like Dr. Elaine said, my mother was like, "Oh, I want you to be a nurse." I went to school for nursing and I hated it, the science and everything. But the minute that I sat in my first psychology class, I felt like I was in heaven. And so I knew that because people would just say things to me, and my mom would say, I don't know why you listen to everybody's problems, but to me, it's not a problem. To me, when people share, in my head is a story, right? And so I knew that, and so a lot of times that's when that conversation comes. I would like for you to be a nurse, but what would you like to be? And when they tell you, I want to be the sanitation truck driver, oh my God, that just let them follow through. Just fall back because a lot of times we put that stressors on them and then they start acting out like you said, coach, and they become depressed and anxiety, and then they start snapping at people. It just and it's a
Mhm.
different behavior because they are not comfortable with themselves because they know what they want to do.
That's good. Thanks for answering that. Let's see. Commercial break.
Yes.
Alonzo says, salute.
Hello, Alonzo.
Landon says, as a youth, when parents or guardians begin knocking or asking to your room, it goes a long way on respect of privacy.
It goes a long way to respect and privacy.
Okay.
So, Dr. Sanders, Elaine, would you do the honors and read the next question?
Sure. It says, what advice would you give someone who is just starting to learn about boundaries?
Advice that I would give is boundaries is not a bad thing. Boundaries is not a bad word. And like we said earlier, have the boundaries to be as light as possible, and it's to guard and guide you. Boundary is a part of self-care. Boundaries is a part of self-assessment, and boundaries is also a part of self-love, because we have to admit, everyone that's on here tonight, you have boundaries when it comes to your password. Your banking password you will not share, right? That's a boundary. And so certain things you will keep in order and in intact. And so that's what you want to do. You want to follow through with that.
And I'm just going to say, they're having some boundaries on this like, share, and subscribe, and, seeing some more super chats. So I'm going to need you to release some of those things. Please and thank you.
Yes, yes, the please and thank you.
Project Me says boundaries are a part of self care and love. That's very good. Absolutely.
And I love the way Dr. Hardy just put these analogies to it. Your password is about, I never thought of my password as a
Right.
boundary. It's just a
And,
password. You can't get in there, but it is a boundary.
It's
and you're
about
not going to give it to anyone.
Right. So now I'll venture to say now when we look at our password, nope, that's a boundary.
that's
That's a
about
boundary. You can't
right.
get in
You
there.
would never put your password on Facebook.
Right.
Right.
Prestige Media. So this is William Michael Barbie. I totally agree. Boundaries support our self care.
Yes, they do.
Yes, it
Because it
does.
helps protect us. And people think when we put up boundaries, it's for them. It's not so much for you, it's for me. And I'll share, I had someone I was close to. She set some boundaries in terms of our relationship, and I respected them. And when I respected them, she came back and was like, well, I didn't mean this and I didn't mean this, but hold on. I respected your boundaries. Now, how I'm responding to your boundaries, you don't get to dictate that. Now
That's
you have to respect mine.
yes.
And when I put a boundary up and you cross it, that doesn't mean I'm going to draw a line and step back for you to cross another one. It's here and that's it. To every boundary, there has to be a consequence, I believe. Because if you cross it, what's the consequence? Because I told you this is a boundary, don't step over it. So, again, when we put boundaries out there, I believe that we should respect others and others should respect ours. But when you put them out there and someone respects your boundary, don't get upset at them for respecting the boundary you put out there in the way that they're respecting it.
That's good. That's good. May I read just a few things about healthy things about boundaries? Is that okay?
Yeah, and you know what? This is great because the next question says, how do boundaries evolve over time and how can someone reassess and adjust them as needed? So, great.
Oh,
Absolutely.
awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
And the importance of setting boundaries is to practice self-care and self-respect. We talked about that. To communicate your needs in a relationship. You just mentioned that how this is the boundary I'm setting and then crossing the line and you have no control over my response. To make time and space for positive interaction. And we talked about that earlier, to have that communication, to be able to show up for yourself and others. And I would put a long line on be able to show up for yourself because a lot of times we show up for others, but we need to show
Mhm.
up for ourselves, right? And to create authentic experience and connection. This go back to dad and the children. We want to create great experience and have that connection because there's nothing like having a good connection with your parent,
Mhm.
right? And to conserve emotional energy.
That's
Uh,
good.
yeah.
That's really good. Thanks for sharing that. You have more?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay. So we have some more. Oh, hold on. Bravo
Yeah.
with Sheila speaking.
She said, I paid a huge price in my life by not having boundaries. Lesson learned.
Ooh, that's good. That's really
Mhm.
good. And I think all of us have moments in our life that I hope tonight will help us all be aware of boundaries, our personal boundaries, our family boundaries, our work boundaries. Just be aware of it so you can protect yourself and have that inner emotion, like that emotional release.
Mhm.
When that person crossed that line, like, okay, it's okay. You crossed that line, but I'm not
Right.
responding, and you're still moving forward.
Mhm.
At Project Me says, I agree. We can't keep moving the line.
Yes. Oh, Project May, hi.
Yeah. So this is the part of the show, Dr. Hardy, where we play a clip and we get your perspective. We also drop the link for the men to jump on. So as
Okay.
we play the clip, I'm going to drop the link for the men out there that want to come up on the platform.
Cost to children of parents not being able to set boundaries has never been higher. You get so much bang for your buck in life from helping kids just learn to tolerate frustration. And so much of kids' early life right now in the world we live in is all about the immediate escape from frustration. From frustration to gratification in like an instant. Their circuitry around expectations and what feels good, it scares me. It does. Figuring out how to insert frustration into your kid's life as early as possible is of critical importance.
Ooh.
So my question is, what do you think about that when she said inserting frustration into your kid's life, even though they're dealing with everything else? And we talked about social media. So what's your take on that?
I would say I'm still sticking with the part that boundaries is good to guard, but also, like she said, I wouldn't say insert frustration, but that allow to teach your children that there will be struggles and problems. and how would you handle it? Because every day is not going to be a good day, but it's a good day because you're living,
Mm-hmm.
and just to insert that in, because frustrations will come, problems will come. I just think the word frustration is kind of strong, but she still have a point. She has a point, but frustration, to me, if you say frustration, it'll automatically make the person become anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. But when you say problems will come and how you're going to handle it, it makes them become a problem solver. And we want our children to be solution focused. You're going to have problems, but what's the answer to it?
If I can, I think there's two things. One thing my uncle used to say is not a problem, it's just a situation. So it
Mm,
changes the dynamics of it. So I thank my uncle
that's good.
for teaching me that. The other thing that I was thinking was, is it more so we look to, as parents, we look to fix it opposed to allowing our children to go through the process of it, right? Because if the kid says, I did this, we try to figure out, how do I fix it for you so that you don't have to endure, opposed to allowing you to sit in this thing that you created and not, fix the problem. Whatever the consequences are, you have to sit in those consequences because that's what you chose.
That's very good. And you making me think, sometime I do that in sessions. I switch to solution focus as opposed to, going back and listening and going back and forth. Okay, so you came here with the problem. Now, what do you think the answer would be? And let's come up with an answer before you leave. And the answer, I mean, it could work and might not work, but I agree with that. That's good, Dr. Elaine.
And that's good, Elaine. Welcome, Pastor Chris. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And before you get to chime and welcome, I'm sorry, say welcome. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What's good, Dr. Hardy, Dr. Elaine Sanders, and the coach, Pache Felton. Oh, it's great to be
Hey,
here. Thank you.
thank you for popping on. And before we speak and we get this dialogue on, something that Elaine said was very true, because I was one that had to learn that with my daughter. And like, don't do that because I did that. Don't do that because I did that. I don't want you to do that. But again, I had to learn me and I had to learn her. And once I learned her, took my hands off. God, that's your
Mm,
child. You do what you do. And I had to sit in whatever it is she was going through. And even still to this day, whatever she's navigating through, it doesn't stop at an age when you're a parent, at least not for me. You're there through the thick and thin, because again, like you said, trials and tribulations will come. So that
mhm.
was my take on that. And I knew you would bring perspective on that word, because when she kept saying insert frustration, I'm like, you don't insert frustration. How do you do that? So that's good. Pastor Chris.
Yes, ma'am. You have a question. I'm trying to be like Mike. I'm trying to be like Mike tonight. I'm sorry.
No one
Okay,
can
No,
be
okay. Well,
like Mike.
be like Pastor Chris.
no. This show has actually been awesome. And of course I kind of stopped the conversation you guys were on. Definitely a collision course of stuff that's going on with men per se. I did pose that question in regards to my son because yeah, it's one of those things. As a parent, you don't ever want to lose your kid. You want your kid to bury you, you know. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, where do I go? Maybe it was social media that was an influence. Maybe it was because me and his mom didn't stay together. You know, all these things come into
Mhm.
play. And of course, I'm mentally okay. But of course, as a parent, you're going to always have those questions. So
Yeah.
that's why I posed the question. And I'm glad that Dr. Hardy is on here because, again, I'm quite sure she might have answers. And I'm quite sure I may have to do things outside, this forum, which I don't have a problem with. But again, I don't have a problem telling my story because I'm quite sure there's a lot of men out there that have the same situation that I had. And a lot of times when it comes to men, we like to, we stay guarded and we don't want to open up. But when it comes to stuff like that, and so I just thank you for just allowing me to be on the forum as always. Oh, there's my boy Mike. There you go.
There
Oh
is
shoot.
Mike McDonald, and
Oh.
before Mike greets us with his presence, let's put this up.
Prestige. So this is going back to the video. It says the word allow versus insert. So I think that kind of
I
goes
even
back
like
to what I,
allow too.
I'm sorry.
I said I like the word allow as well,
Right.
and
So
not
it kind of goes
insert.
back to allow whatever is happening to happen versus I'm going to insert sounds like I'm going to
Yes,
throw a problem in there and now let's see how you handle it, opposed
yes.
to allowing life to do what life does with all of us. And now to see, what's your processing skills? What skills do you have to navigate through what's happening? Or are you going to always look for, dad or mom or someone else to fix it, opposed to coming up with your own solutions?
And I even think with that, when she was saying insert frustrations, that could be aggressive. What do you think, Dr. Hardy? We talked about being aggressive and setting boundaries without being aggressive. But if you're like inserting frustration, like who wants to see their kid frustrated?
And you're inserting anxiety. So because anxiety is facing the unknown, and so frustration
Mhm.
is you're all over the place. So you're inserting the unknown. And so I think a lot of times we have to change our words. A lot of things that we say, we just need to change it. Like for instance, I don't like balance is the key when I'm talking to my client and say, oh well, balance, everything is balance. I think balance is good for certain things, but I think when it comes to balance, if you're thinking about you're on the balance beam and you're trying to stay up on the beam,
Hmm.
you're constantly swaying. But what is your rhythm for the day? And so I insert that, just certain words for certain people. Balance work for some and it doesn't work for others. So
Okay.
I'm just saying for different people you could just change the wording.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Different words, different people. And we're going to talk to Mike McDonald and get his narrative because, he's going to tell us his opinion and give the narrative that he does not agree with tonight. So, welcome,
Okay.
Mike.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Hardy, welcome.
Thank you.
Um, you made some very good points. Very, very informative. Very enlightening. And I'm not here to cause any waves, any problems. But I do have my own narrative, and my narrative is that you know while your points were great, they were from a perspective of a woman. This is supposed to be Men's Week. And I'm not saying that as a disrespect, man. I'm not saying that as a disrespect to the show. However, it is a woman's point of view. Um, I differ slightly from some of your perspectives, but I respect your perspectives. Okay. One of the things that I would like to point out is that when we talk about men as leaders, I think we can all agree that men are born leaders. There are some women that are worthy of leading. It might be more women out there than men that are worthy of leading. Okay. However, when we speak about the family, and was one point in which you made when the family was once together and then the family breaks up, how does that man or that male figure um, set boundaries at a home that he is no longer in? Um, First off, I wrote a note here. Um, Effect derives from respect. So that male figure, an authoritative figure who is setting boundaries, can only be effective if he's respected. So you would hope that that man leads by example. You would hope that man sets boundaries by examples, examples that he's following his own life, examples that he expects to be followed and and modeled after him. So, with that being said, I think that a lot of relationships started, between men and women, that there was never a mutual respect. So therefore, there is going to be a breakdown of boundaries. Therefore, there is going to be a conflict when the man sets boundaries. When one looks for a partner, you either look for a partner that you respect, or you respect the other person enough for them to lead you. And I think that's where the boundaries, or the breakdown of the boundaries, start to happen.
And Dr. Hardy, before you respond to Mike, I just want to say something.
You,
I,
you don't you, you don't have to say it.
I can, okay, I'm mutual.
Ever
I'm
go
to say you're muted. What I need to happen is, like we said at the beginning of the show, respect. It's not a woman's perspective, it's a doctor's perspective. This is what she does. This is her field. So let's take the gender off of it and listen to what the doctor is bringing to the table. You're shaking your head. Again, a doctor's perspective. Yes, she's a
Let
woman
me
doctor, but this is her field. Elaine, go.
I was going to say something similar to that, to say we have to look at the training. So the training, whether male or female, the training is the same. The education is the same. And if you have a client, whether male or female, the study, the DSM, I don't know what if they're at 6, 5, wherever the book is still the same, mental aspect of learning the left side and the right side, and how men think, and all of those things are still the same. So whether it was a female or a male, the profession is still the same. I think that the thing is, she did not say, you know, her being a dad. It was men think from this area, or so these are concrete things that you can research, opposed to being, thank you, DSM-5, thank you. I figured they were at 6 by now, but
Me too.
is with that being said, so I think take the gender, it has nothing to do with gender as much as this is what you've been trained, male or female, who went through the same training would have the same answers. So
And the beautiful part about my experiences with counseling guys is the fact that I often hear them say, one thing I like about being in session is you allow me to share everything, and you actually hear what I'm saying. So that goes back to listening and actually hearing what the person said. Now, as far as boundaries, we have established earlier that each household is different, each personality is different, and a lot of things is not personal, it's personality, it's culture, it's society, and it's situations. You don't counsel everybody the same way. Everybody is not the same, so we're going to have those differences. And so I so much respect it, and I have no problem with it. So thank you.
You're off mute.
Okay. Like I said in the beginning, when I first got on, I said, Dr. Hardy, I respect everything you said.
You
You
did.
made some great points that I totally agree with. But and
You're breaking up.
we can't hear you.
can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. But the fact remains. All right. So let me ask you this. Let's take this back.
We can't hear you.
Action
We
was,
can't hear you.
you can't hear me?
You're
Now
fading
we
in and
can.
out.
Okay.
Now we can.
Okay. I'm sorry. So I forget what election it was. I'm thinking it was the election of 2010, when Obama and Hillary Clinton were running on the same ticket, right? The I asked a couple of people who happen to be of color, in particular women of color. Who do you vote for? The first black president or the first female president? They were torn. Some women said, I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton, despite me being a black woman and the opportunity of having the first black president. I respected that, but not from a male perspective. You see, a woman is going to be a woman, is going to hold their own perspective, is going to hold their own truth, is going to hold their own opinion, no matter what your education is and how right you are, how wrong you are. Not saying that you are wrong. You're going to speak from what you know, being who you are. Just like
you're
I'm
doing right now,
speaking. Pardon?
like you're doing right now as a man, because I believe everyone
Exactly.
has an opinion,
Right,
regardless
right.
of
And I
gender,
respect that.
male.
I respect that. But that's what I said in the beginning. I respect the opinion of Dr. Hardy. I thought she
But
was
you also
on
put
point.
women in there. But you put women in there, and what we're saying is, as a doctor, as her profession.
I
Let me
understand.
get my point out.
I don't,
A doctor, and as her profession, she needs to be respected in that area for the time she has put in studying and continues to study and help people. Let's take the woman off of it. She is a doctor, whether male or female. Like Elaine said, if the male goes to school, if the women go to school, it's the same education. They're learning the same thing. So it has nothing to do with that. Yes, you did say you respect her, but when you put the woman in there, it had nothing to do with it. She's a doctor that studied this. This is her field. Pastor Chris?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I put my hand up like we do in the old church. You put the hand up. I understand where Mike is coming from, and I definitely get it. Um, but also, you made a valid point, Coach, in regards to if you have
Let's
dedicated
do it.
your life, huh?
I saw William Michael Bobby and said, let's do it.
We got dynamite after this comment. Okay, let me finish. No, so I understand where Mike is coming from, and I get it. At the same time, you have to honor the life dedication of what Dr. Hardy has put in. She dedicated her life to this. And I can't sit here. This is just me. I'm not sitting here throwing shade at all. This is just me. What I had to learn is that if someone can give you the knowledge to transcend from what you used to be, listen. That's just me. And just listening to what was said today, for me, it was like, whoa, I didn't even think that way, And, so again, I'm not going to sit here and, make it a gender thing. That's just me. I can't do that. I can respect the fact that this woman has gone to school. She dedicated half her life just get her PhD to get people straight. Period. So that's where I'm coming from. There's no shade on Mike because Mike, you my boy. I ain't disrespecting you whatsoever. That's just my opinion. And that's just what I wanted to say. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Hardy, for dedicating your life to making people's minds better and their hearts better. Thank you.
And we got William Michael Barbie up here. So this must be a good topic because he comes in to also get us straight
wait,
and
wait.
say, oh,
Can you hear me? Before Michael attacks me,
we got a
I,
man
I,
to
I,
get you
I,
straight.
I come in peace, okay? All I'm saying is, am I on the mic? Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay. Dr. Hardy, This is no disrespect to your journey, your knowledge, or anything else. All I'm saying is that there was some points that you that was spoken on, not even that you made, that was spoken on, that I really had to interject from a male's perspective. That's all.
Okay.
It's not a show about gender. I am who I am. You are who you are.
Okay, we
That's
thank
it.
you, William Michael Varby. We thank you for gracing us with your presence. And please speak, please speak.
Wait, my brother, Pastor Chris, he's laughing already. Mike, I come in peace. Dr. Hardy, hello. Dr. Elaine, hello. And then to Coach, hello. First, I apologize for not being on the Zoom from the very beginning. Um, I was on another Zoom, but I did come in and I was listening, and I wasn't going to come up on the screen. I think Mike was speaking from a perspective um, that uh, focused heavily, but I think subconsciously he focused heavy on many things. So I think we know Mike. He's going to bring a perspective of gender assignment. But what I have to say, in addition to that, Mike, so that the table is plain, I remember at the age of 20, I ended up with a psychiatrist and a psychologist for 2 years. I didn't have faith that this white Jewish 4'11" chain smoking feminist female could help me because I'm from the inner city of Newark. She's white, she's Jewish, and she had an afro and all these other things. But when trust was established, I learned so much more about myself through the experience of trusting the environment that she set, that we both established in a counseling therapeutic session. And so I'm very cautious and sensitive to us as a people assigning gender to every argument, whether we agree or disagree. And I think if we could get beyond the word of gender or beyond gender and speak to what we're hearing, the message is still the same. And I think if we look from a historic perspective as people of color who've been traumatized, and we have so much unaddressed trauma throughout the centuries, as a black man, when our wives were taken out the house, raped, and sent back home, our power source was diminished. And so the perspective that we as generations later come with a voice, we're speaking with an anger that may be displaced or a perspective that may be out of on a different perspective plane. We're not seeing it from the perspective of what someone is trying to share and educate us, because we're bringing all this other gender related stuff because now we're going to own our power. No one's going to take it. So from a man's perspective, and equally as the coach was saying, as you were speaking, Mike, the coach balanced off and she said, well, as you're saying, because you kept saying from a woman's perspective, and then you said from a man's perspective. So you're doing no different than what you're accusing the doctor of. And so I just hope going forward that our conversations can be more with an open mind, with no judgment, and neither have an assignment to gender. And I support you 100%, Mike. I love you, Mike. You love me?
Wait, we need to hear that.
If they would unmute me, I love you too, Dr. Barbie.
That's so sweet of you.
Okay, but look, I didn't say anything. I didn't use the word gender. The host, right? I didn't want to call you out, but you did. Okay, all I said was this.
We're live. You said woman.
You said a woman
I
perspective.
said
You said
you are a woman. You are
Yeah.
a woman,
And that's a gender. Is women not a gender? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and I love it.
you don't.
okay.
I love it.
That's not
Mike?
fair. That's not fair. If you're gonna mute me, that's
You're
that.
not
You know.
muted.
Oh, okay. It
not
was muted for a minute. It was muted for a minute. Okay. I respect everybody on this panel. I think I'm misread a lot on this platform. Okay. I'm not diminishing, and I got on here when I first started speaking. I gave all my respect to Dr. Hardy. I gave all my respect to what she said. I just added something in the beginning, right on the chat. I said, you're beginning a narrative that you're beginning your sentence with, what was it?
Dads.
Dads. And I just pointed out that you're asking a woman. That's all I said. That's all I said. It wasn't a joke. It was more or less an observation. And this is what we do all the time. I'm noticing there's not enough men out here leading, I guess. And I'm not saying that she cannot lead in this field, because she is. And I respect everything she said. All I'm saying is that I have something to add to that as a male. As a male, because that's what I am. A male.
Mike, can I interject?
That's it. I'm not angry. I'm not emotional.
Stop yelling.
I'm not yelling. That's masculinity.
His emotion.
Okay?
That's emotion.
That's not emotion. That's masculinity.
It's passion, Mike. Passion.
It's passion.
You call it what you want. But that's my voice. That's testosterone. Okay.
Passion
That's my voice.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
You're giving all gender assignments to it.
May I share something? May I share something? With that tone, with that tone, it can be taken so many different ways. And so I definitely understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And I'm trying to practice extra active listening without letting any things cloud my mind, because I want to hear you clearly and I want to understand your perspective, because it's important to me, because I want to learn more so I can grow. So I have no problem listening to what you're saying, but I also, no, I don't want to say but, and also it's the tone. So if you use a tone in a setting like that, it can make a person feel uncomfortable and they won't be able to share their thoughts. So I hear what you're saying is coming from a male perspective, but you know, that's my part. That's all. That's what I'm all around.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let's take a commercial break. Let's take a commercial break. Everybody take a breather.
So Reginald says, the message is profound no matter who's the messenger.
Awesome. Awesome.
Anae says, great point.
Yeah, everybody has great points.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all can hear Vaughn.
Yes, we can hear Vaughn.
Listen, Vaughn said, I'm dying. So, William Michael Barbie, you had something to say. Oh,
yeah, I understand Michael 100% in his position. Not that I agree with him, but I do totally understand him and his expression of perspective based on experience of being a woman. And speaking on the topic of a man, I can see where his view is, not that I agree with him. And so let me say something that you didn't see in the observation, Mike. And I think, well, what I saw during this exchange, I thought the doctor articulated herself very well. I didn't think she needed support or any form of defense that came from Dr. Elaine and or Coach. I thought she did a well job. But when I saw that, I saw where your temperature went up, because you felt in that point, well, not that you felt, you may have felt or experienced as if you were being attacked based on gender. I'm trying to help you, man. Go ahead, I'm trying to help him, man.
Wait.
we have a question. We have a question. Hold on.
I appreciate your help.
What you didn't pay attention to, both the coach and the doctor jumped on to explain Dr. Hardy's position. I thought it didn't need explanation.
Oh, okay.
And
Am I muted?
I think your intensity increased when you heard it from both, and then when you ended up being muted. Is that a fair observation?
No.
No. Okay. I'm
Okay,
trying to.
we have a question. We have a question in commercial break. Commercial break.
So Reginald says, I'm not quite understanding. Would the message have been better received coming from a man? So I believe that question is for you, Mike McDonald.
No, I never said that the message wasn't received. Okay.
No, it was a yes or no.
Would the message would it have been better received if it was from a man? One might believe that, but I'm not one that does. Am I being heard right now?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. All right, because I don't want to offend anybody with my tone. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'm gonna start speaking low, because when
Thank you.
I raise my voice, it offends people,
You're
and
so
it
sensitive.
no, I am.
You take
I
things
am. I'm a
so
sensitive man.
personal.
I learned that from Michael Barbie. I'm being sensitive, and then when I'm being sensitive, it's a
You're
joke
being
now.
vulnerable.
But this is what I'm saying. I just had an opinion. I shared my opinion. I don't feel like I was being attacked for that opinion, and I didn't react to being attacked for my opinion, because my opinion is my opinion. Love it or leave it. It is my opinion. And that's what I thought this platform was about, to share your opinions, to share your perspectives. And that's all I was doing. That's it.
Absolutely. And we
And
always say, and I always say, we respect your opinions, but in the same, at the very beginning of every show, what do we say? Everyone will be respected. So I will say, when I spoke, I was speaking up in terms when you put women on it. And I just want you to acknowledge Dr. Hardy's work that she has done.
Oh,
Work
so
that
have
she,
I. Do you
no,
respect my facts?
hold on,
You
hold
respect
on.
my opinions. Do you respect my facts?
Those are your opinions. They're not facts. Facts are not opinions. Those are two
No, no,
different.
no, no. You call them opinions. I was just running along with you. But I was
no,
speaking from a factual point.
Whose factual point?
can I'm gonna put the finger up like Pastor Chris. So I think if I can just kind of interject, one of the things that you said, Mike, was definitely, you shared your opinion. When Dr. Hardy is speaking as a professional, that's not her opinion. She's talking from, as I spoke of, the DSM-5. This is like research and things that are done. So I think that's the balance of understanding, this is what I think versus this is the thing that the research has shown. So I can say, oh, I think women are, or anyone, I think children are X, Y, and Z, versus saying, research has shown 65% of children X, Y, and Z. So there is more than just what I feel in the moment versus what is happening overall from a research perspective. So I think that kind of the difference between, we absolutely welcome everyone's opinion respectfully on the show. But when we have professionals, we read their background and their bio for a particular reason, to show that they have studied to show themselves approved.
Mhm.
And hold on, we have a super chat. So before we
Woo,
go any
woo.
further,
Bravo with Sheila said, Von Eric is laughing. Can't you hear him? So we thank you for those super chats. As we said earlier, please like, share, subscribe, and we love super chats.
and
So
Dr. Hardy has somebody else in here too.
This sounds like Mr. Hardy. He said, "Great point, Dr. Wife." So,
all due respect, sir.
that's the male's perspective.
It's not an attack on Dr. Hardy. You're making me sound like I'm here to attack people. I'm not. DSM-5 has been around for a long time. It hasn't been written or rewritten. Am I right?
That's correct. They're adding more diagnosis to it every
Right.
year.
And they take it away some too, right? Gender identification, they've taken that away, right?
Yeah. They're trying to be a little, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
hold on. You know you're muted because you know we can't. No, no, and I'm not trying to be funny, but you know, and we had this conversation before. Certain things we cannot go into on YouTube. So that's why I muted you. Certain things we cannot say, certain topics, the way we say them. It can you just listen? I'm not muting you to be disrespectful. I'm telling you why, because I see where the conversation is going. And as I stated before, oh Lord have mercy, we don't want to be on YouTube timeout. So that's why we have
it's
to be
true.
careful with our words. That's all I'm saying. And I am going to unmute you. Elaine, would you like to read the
Yes.
commercial?
So Hardy's are coming in. Facts at a ref point. At a ref point. I guess reference point. Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm saying, Mike. You can continue. I know we're talking, but I just don't want us. We want to
I
stay
was you
in.
thought I was you thought I was going somewhere, but my point was this. The DSM-5 is not a one size fits all. You agree with that? It doesn't fit everybody. Doesn't fit everybody. Agree or disagree?
I'm going to disagree. And the reason why I say that, I think it's just like anything, things can be revised as things change. Like we didn't have COVID. So you have to update for things that happen. Social media wasn't around. So you have to update. So I don't necessarily I say revise as things,
Right.
but it
So
still has the heart. It
I'm
still
sorry.
has the heart of what diagnosis, whatever those things are. That doesn't change. There may be new trends or things that you see that's different, that there are revisions.
Right. I get it. So it's not a one size fits all.
Nothing in life is a one size fit all.
So the DSM-5, it's fair to say, is not a one size fits all. That's what you just said, right?
I said nothing, and I didn't mention DSM-5 because
Okay.
I don't want to mention that on the air. I can mention that one on one
Okay.
with my
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Without saying it, you said it. Okay. I'm sorry.
No,
Put
I
words
didn't.
in your
I didn't
mouth.
say
You didn't say
anything.
that.
I didn't say
She
anything.
didn't say it, neither did she imply it.
That's
Oh, she
right.
didn't imply it? Oh, okay. That was my
I
next
have to
question. Did you
agree.
imply it?
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Right.
okay, okay. I knew I was gonna bring my gavel out. Order in the court. Order in the court. Let's get things under order here. So again, the book we came from this month was The Boy Crisis. It's a great book. We want to thank everybody that came on this month to share with men. We had Dr. Sherrod, we had Dr. Hardy. I know I'm forgetting some. So we had individuals come on just for the month of June so we can celebrate men and let them know that we love them and we appreciate them. We are going to go around. Dr. Hardy, as always, we give our guests the last word. So, Mike, what would you like to say as we wrap up and close out this session?
Okay.
What's that? A piece of paper?
These are my notes. Okay.
Okay.
I was here from the beginning of the session, Michael Barbie. I'm speaking.
Please don't
This
read
is,
all your notes. Just one or two things. Just one thing.
okay. So I thank you for your knowledge, Dr. Hardy. I thank you for your understanding of my perspective and where I come from and what I bring to this platform today. And I didn't mean to offend anybody or disrespect anybody um, level of knowledge, expertise, or anything. Um, and I hope one day that if I walk into your office, you won't hold that against me. But
I think you need to be there.
I
uh,
might pay
I
for a
hope. I'm
session.
praying you get there.
hey, but no, thank you. I really enjoyed your your perspective on things. Thank you.
Thank
Even
you.
though it was Men's Month.
William,
Thank you.
William Michael Bobby, because Pastor Chris can't talk right now. He's laughing. William Michael Bobby, as always, we thank you for jumping on and sharing your perspective and loving on your brother Mike McDonald. So, final words.
Um, I list weekly God inspired quotes, and at 4:30 a.m. I'm up meditating, praying, and communing, and I'm getting more insights because at that time it appears that I hear from God because that veil of spiritual and physical world is so close and thin that I can hear from God there. But one thing that I wrote, and I think it applies to all of us, is forgiveness comes from a place of love. And wait, forgive others from a place of love and love yourself from a place of forgiveness. And so that's what I'll lead on.
That's
And
good.
Dr. Hardy, nice meeting you, man.
Pastor Chris.
All right, I got myself together. So yeah, this has been, as always, a phenomenal show. Of course, Mondays beyond the mic. Never mind. Anyway, no, I just wanted to again thank Dr. Hardy for coming on the platform. Her knowledge was definitely an eye opener.
I agree.
It definitely gave me a head, what do you call it, a brain freeze when you drink that Slurpee too fast. Yeah, I was like, oh my god. But yes, it's definitely bar none. She need to drop her stuff in the links or in the chat because yeah, your boy might give you a call because yeah, you have a lot of things that especially with grief counseling, that's just expertise. So again, I don't have a problem saying anything about that because if y'all know me, I'm gonna tell it like it is. But again, I gotta salute the coach. Thank you so much for having me. Of course, Dr. Lane, and of course our special guest, Dr. Hardy in the building, of course, William Michael Barbie, and of course, Mondays Beyond the Mic would not be without Mike McDonald. I'm just saying. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. Tune in next week, same time, same place. This is your boy, the Psalmist Voice, aka Pastor Christopher Newton, and you are more than you think and greater than you heard. I'm out.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Pastor Chris. And what I will say is thank you to everyone again for sharing their perspectives and coming on. And thank you, Dr. Hardy, for coming on and extending your knowledge to us all for free. We definitely appreciate that. So, again, before we close out, Bravo with Sheila Network will be on tomorrow with Karen in Ghana at 4 p.m. If you need a little more Jesus, we need you to go across the street to Bravo Sheila Network and get you some Jesus and some Jesus juice and let the glory rest upon you with the Lord. Because Tuesday, Pastor Rosa is on at 10 a.m. and Friday, Women of Grace, they're on at 11 a.m. But back
Mm.
here on Thursday night, guess what? It's Thursday night with Lady Dawn B at 7 p.m. So that's what's going on here on the Bravo with Sheila Network and the Sheila Ingram Ministry next across the street where you get your little Jesus on and get your praise and worship on and get your special anointing to fall on you, some little glory for the day. However, thank you. Let's all set boundaries to protect ourselves and others. And remember, when you set a boundary, someone crosses it, don't draw another line in the sand and step back and set another one. My co host Elaine and Dr. Hardy, then it's on you to take us out.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to take a word or quote from Dr. Hardy about hearing is a behavior. So I just want us to practice hearing as the behavior. That's it.
Dr.
And
Hardy.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And my hope and prayer is that the audience will receive great information, that have received great information on boundaries and how boundaries is not a bad word. Boundaries is for our protection and to keep us safe. I thank you for having me. I thank everyone that's on in internet land and that's on here. And I appreciate you all and know that God is amazing. And without you, He needs you. He need us for our hands, feet, mouth, and all. I'm his ears on this earth. So I want to, yeah, I feel like I'm his ears on this earth. And so I hear what people are saying. So that's my job. So thank you so much. And keep on keeping on. And I appreciate you all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and good night to all. And we have some comments going on.
Can I ask a quick question?
Okay.
What is the hierarchy? Um, is it more important to listen than to hear? Because when you're listening, you're showing a level of understanding, right? Hearing tends to go in one ear and out the other, and you're not really expected to act on a hearing. So
Listening
isn't listening the hierarchy than hearing?
Yes.
Is it a higher power than hearing?
is actually it's not it's one is not higher than the other. Hearing is
Mhm.
actually listening. You heard what the person said. Hearing is actually doing the behavior. So a lot of times you could say, "Oh, you could listen," but if someone say, "Would you please vacuum the floor?" You heard you was listening, but did you really hear? Because the hearing part doing is actually doing the behavior and vacuuming the floor.
Okay.
And
Hence, you
on
heard?
that note, thank you so much.
Okay.
If you feel like, share, and subscribe.